The premise of today is really we're going to kind of do a jump in to kind of the ready to learn and play model that Janis Leinfuss is going to share with us. So welcome, Janis. I am so pleased that you've decided to join.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share what I've been doing and what's been working for me and the kiddos I've been treating. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, perfect, perfect. Before we go into kind of really talking about the, I guess, your subject area, as it were, it would be really great to just hear a little bit about yourself and your journey. Because I know when we first connected and I was hearing about kind of everything that you've done along your route to be where you are in occupational therapy today, I was like, wow, we really don't know about everybody's journeys, hey? So it would be great if you could just share that with us.
Absolutely. I've been practicing for over 20 years. I have my bachelor's in OT.
Okay.
And then from there, I went on to get my master's in exceptionalities in special education. I was really finding that there was a gap between special educators and all of their wonderful knowledge and occupational therapists and all of our wonderful knowledge, and really trying to pull that together for the betterment of our kids. Clinically speaking, I have worked kids my entire career, public schools, private schools, clinics, in my clients' homes, and in community settings. Have obviously worked with kiddos across many diagnoses, many challenges, but I have to say my personal passion has always been sensory processing and individuals on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
So that's my area of specialty, I would say.
Okay. And so with that in mind, can you share a little bit about the students you work with presently?
Okay. Currently, I'm working at a private school that specializes in the education of individuals with autism spectrum disorder or related conditions, and I also work in a private practice.
Okay.
My main focus with my kiddos in the school setting is to support their ability to fully access their educational program. And in doing so, sensory processing and regulation really becomes the foundation of much of my interventions.
And it's so interesting you talk about foundation, because I certainly know one of the very first videos I did in the sensory motor classroom, I put on the pyramid, the developmental pyramid, in terms of that foundation of sensory motor, all our sensory systems being at the bottom of like our base of our functioning, and then all our motor systems, and then at the pinnacle, that kind of academic ADL kind of activities of daily living and focus. So I guess we're so familiar with thinking about this, the sensory systems are our foundation, but sometimes when we're in the school setting, we can lose track of that because of all the demands that are placed on everybody in terms of curriculum or other demands.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why I feel that the collaboration piece is so critical, because just as you're saying, occupational therapists have this wonderful pyramid. You know, we know this foundation piece. And the teachers have all of these wonderful programs and skills to teach their children these wonderful things, but you know, they're at the top and we're sometimes at the bottom, and we need to kind of pull together to make this a successful pyramid for our kiddos, for sure.
Yeah. And what have you found the most helpful then in your school setting, thinking about that and thinking about the sessions maybe with your students or maybe the sessions with teachers? What have you found the most helpful in your work at the school?
Really, it's twofold. I feel that the students need to be empowered to understand how sensory-based interventions, sensory strategies can affect their ability to focus so that they are ready to learn and ready to play. Okay. And I think that caregivers, family members, educators, speech therapists, the whole gamut on this professional team need to understand how to support their students when they're not able to necessarily articulate it for themselves what they need. As professionals, when we have a little preschooler and they're, wiggling in their seat and they're crossing their legs a certain way, as adults, we know, oh, they're giving me a clue. They need to use a restroom, perhaps. Our kiddos are giving us clues all the time. And part of our role, I believe, as an occupational therapist is to translate these clues that our kiddos are giving us so that they are understood by a multitude of professionals and their caregivers and their loved ones, so that these kiddos can feel their best and be their best, throughout their life.
Sure. And really, I guess that leads us on quite nicely when we first connected, which was actually through a mutual Facebook friend. Hey, it's
Right.
interesting how the world's so interconnected.
Absolutely.
How a friend of mine said, hey, do you know this person? And then this person kind of was like, hey, I really think Janis would be an excellent person to like speak in the group. And the reason that was we kind of connected was really your capstone project.
Yes.
And could you, I'm just going to share on the screen right now.
Okay.
The project. And can you just tell us a little bit more about this, the Ready to Learn and Play project?
All right. Well, this is a framework that I developed with 2 other occupational therapists as a way to support the coaching and training for individuals with autism, as well as their caregivers and teachers, to be able to understand how to choose appropriate sensory-based strategies, as well as why sensory-based strategies are effective. So this was something that clinically in practice we were seeing was working. We were getting feedback from teachers and parents in IEP meetings that things were changing and positive things were happening. So I just kind of had that we had to go further with it. It's wonderful to make changes with the kiddos that we have in front of us, but when we were seeing these positive changes, we really wanted to take it beyond our therapy room and beyond kiddos that we could touch personally in our therapy. So that's where I designed my capstone project.
Okay.
In my capstone project, I had a control group and I had an intervention group. My control group received standard occupational therapy services in the school. The intervention group received the same standard OT services in the school, plus the inclusion of the Ready to Learn and Play framework as part of their program.
Okay.
All of this, we did a pretest with the school companion sensory profile to determine that all the kiddos had sensory processing challenges as perceived by their special education teacher.
Okay.
And then they had also the short child occupational profile was used as an interview that was done between the occupational therapist, the speech therapist, the board certified behavior analyst, and the classroom teacher to determine the facilitators and the barriers to their occupational performance at pre-test and post-test.
Okay.
And then, the school year went on and therapy happened, so on and so forth. The post-test happened. And from there, we went through this intervention. So I will give a little bit of background on the intervention just so that you have some understanding.
Sure.
It's a 4-phase treatment approach that has rubrics for mastery for phase 1 through 3. So we're basing this on evidence and moving it forward. Phase 1 is a pictorial that we utilize. It's really about the kids experiencing and exploring sensory-based interventions and seeing with their therapist what feels good, what doesn't, what works, what doesn't, so on and so forth. And these kids are taught to categorize the sensory strategies into sensory categories. And these sensory categories are, for all intents and purposes, the sensory systems. We just are using, very layman terms. Instead of the visual system, we're talking about eyes. Instead of vestibular system, we're saying move. Just keeping it friendly, keeping it simple, taking out the professional jargon that sometimes just creates barriers, kind of gives us a level playing field. So this is an example of for the visual system, and they learn a ton of different strategies, but here's 4 of them that sometimes I need an activity for my eyes to get ready to learn and play. I know lots of sensory activities. You can turn the lights off. You can wear sunglasses. You can put up a hood. You can wear a hat. Those sorts of things. So they're learning this in isolation. And then as we move into phase 2, if you wanted to move to that, yeah, there we go. We introduced this concept of scattered actions, and scattered actions are not bad. They are just clues. They are the sensory seeking, the sensory avoiding, the self-stimulatory behaviors that individuals do or may not do, but are giving clues to what they may need or what they may need to be added to their sensory lifestyle at that moment, or things that need to be pulled back a little bit. And we are coaching these individuals with autism, as well as their caregivers and educators and so on and so forth, that sometimes these scattered actions are showing that they need more than one sensory activity at a time. And that's what I think some of the breakdown can be is, people was, I put a weighted vest on him and it didn't work. Well, it might not be that it didn't work. It might just not have been enough.
I see.
And teaching these kiddos and the loved ones and caregivers and teachers that go along with them to look and say, if you're tensing and you're squinting your eyes, you're actually giving two clues. You're giving a clue that you need something for your visual system, and you're giving a clue that you need something for your proprioceptive system. Well, you learned in phase one a whole bunch of activities for your visual system and a whole bunch of activities for your proprioceptive system. Well, then now we know how to put them together. And if on I believe it's the next slide, Rachel, if you want to move it forward, this is an example. Oh, actually, this is an example. So they have a pictorial, keeping it real straightforward for these kiddos. Some read, some don't, so it doesn't really matter. If you're squinting, you're giving a clue. You need something for your visual system. You know what you can do? Go back to what you already chose, put up a hood. Try it, see if it works. Maybe you need the lights out, so on and so forth. And then here again, it's the tensing. Try a squeeze ball, try a weighted vest. But we would have worked through that in phase one with the occupational therapist, the strategies that are most effective. So
I love this visual as well. This is so, I feel that this is so important, not only for the child, but also everybody that's supporting the child, the student in the classroom, at home. Like, this visual is like, oh, okay, this is happening. Let's try this. Because in the moment, it can be challenging to know what to do.
And oftentimes students with autism respond very well to pictures. So that using pictures of this, then this, then this, that makes sense to the way that they learn. And a lot of this program was based on educational psychology research. It was based on education, behavioral psychology, all different, as well as occupational therapy theory, pulled together to be able to really target this area for individuals on the spectrum who potentially are having challenges learning this in other regulation programs.
Great.
All right, and then from here, we need to really work on generalizing this. So that's phase 3. And phase 3, we are trying to take these concepts that they've learned in therapy beyond the therapy room, because it's wonderful if a child knows how to regulate their sensory needs in an OT gym or with their occupational therapist. That's fantastic. But their occupational therapist is clearly not with them at all places and in all environments. So they need to know how to use these strategies, or know that they are allowed or able to use these strategies, and that these strategies exist for them outside of therapy room sessions. So then we're working on generalizing. Okay, so here we have a bunch of pictures related to pressure-based activities. Well, in OT, you might climb. In the classroom, you might do, chair push-ups. On the playground, you might climb. At home, you might have a weighted blanket, so you can snuggle under that. And in the community, maybe you're wearing a heavy backpack as you're walking through, the grocery store. All are meeting that same need, but are done in ways that are appropriate and feasible in different environments. And this is really where collaboration and coaching with the teachers come into play, because a strategy that I may feel is appropriate for a classroom might not be in a particular environment. So really working with the teachers to come up with, all right, we're finding that proprioception is key, is huge for this kiddo. They do a lot of tensing, they do a lot of those behaviors are scattered actions, and we need to support them to really be able to get them to learn and play appropriately in your classroom. So what can we work with? Here are some ideas. Here's all the things that they know in this category. Which ones do you feel would be the most feasible? And then we build those in phase 4, where we apply all of this into different into their life, so that they're really creating a sensory lifestyle. Sensory diets are wonderful, but only if you know how to use them. So being able to create a sensory lifestyle where you're really looking at the environment, you're looking at the child in that moment, and that child is able to reflect in that moment as to what they need. the lights are too bright. We can turn them off. And we have different applications, as you can see on this screen, a classroom application. There's two on the left where we have the different pictures that go with the different sensory categories. So if the kiddo either is nonverbal or just needs a visual cue, they're there for them. They're squinting. They can either go look, or they can be encouraged by their teacher to, what, you're giving me a clue. You're squinting. What do you need to get ready to learn and play? Oh, I can put up my hood. I can ask for the lights to be turned off. I can maybe request, a different seat in the classroom because it's a little too distracting over in this area, whatever. And then we have student-specific applications. So if this is not something that needs to be done across the entire classroom, it can be done per student. And these are three different examples. The first one is for a writer, so that this child knows what to do, but maybe they just need the visual of move, eyes, ears, so on and so forth. And then instead of having to verbally, articulate their need or their at that moment, they can just write it down. And then they can discreetly either access that independently or with the support of an adult. And then the next is using multiple pictures per sensory category, so that are more specific to the environment. And then there's a third example that kind of combines the two.
Okay.
And that's really individualized. It depends on what the kiddo needs, and so on. So that's kind of the framework in a nutshell.
Okay, and how, and from your findings, how effective have you found the taking students from stage 1 to take that identification of what they need, to stage 2, to recognizing when they feel a certain way they need to do something, to stage 3 of kind of more of that implementation around generalizing, and then being able to use that across truly that sensory lifestyle, as you say? How have you found students have responded to each of those different stages?
Very positively. I mean, it's obviously very individualized. So the process is the same. The time frame, it may be very different. I have had students where I have been able to go through this framework in 8 sessions and been able to get through it quickly. And they just kind of needed it all tied together for them. And they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I can do this. I can, I got this. And then there's other students where, this is a, year or multi-year intervention plan, or part of their plan, obviously. But every step of the way, they're gaining awareness, and their caregivers and their teachers are gaining more insight and understanding as to how to support their student. So I really feel that the progression, it's twofold. It's whether the independence level of the student as the supports that are required from the adults in their life. And to be honest with you, they're both successful in my eyes.
Okay.
If it's a caregiver or an educator needs to help the student, that's okay. We all need help in this world. That's okay if you need somebody to help you through this process. But you can't be helped if the people that are with you the majority of the time don't understand your clues. So that's where I feel like the collaboration is critical. It's really critical.
Okay. And that's really interesting you say that, because certainly collaboration, it's what the group is all about here. And really what it's the essence of what we're trying to achieve is teachers kind of sharing their knowledge, and as OTs would be able to share ours and being able to collaborate. And
absolutely, because none of us have it all.
No, absolutely.
When we work together, that's when those magic moments happen. Sure. Truly. And that's when those magic moments turn into real solid change and growth for these kids.
And you actually had some end outcome for this research, so could you talk us through actually, so I guess you saw anecdotally the benefits, but can you tell us from the kind of the facts point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, as anecdotally in practice, we saw that it was working. We heard about it at meetings. We were getting good feedback from actually all the different disciplines that, the kids were, I had a student, in an IEP meeting, the parent said, he's bringing me a pillow and asking me for squishes before bed. I don't know what this means. What's this about? And I was all excited. I'm like, no, that's fantastic. He's generalizing. This is what he's telling you. So we were seeing it anecdotally.
Sure.
But for my capstone, we needed to know that there's meat to this to be able to take it to the next level, clearly. So as I said, we did the pre-test and the post-test. We determined that all of the groups were homogeneous the two groups were homogeneous in terms of their age, their gender, their sensory processing at pre-test, and their occupational performance based on their interviews at pre-test. So that kind of gave us a baseline that, we're talking about two groups that were pretty evenly distributed. Sure. And then the post-test showed positive change in occupational performance for all of the students, which again, as therapists, is what we want to see. Everyone made growth. But the interesting part was, and the exciting part for me, was that the mean change for the control group was 3.25 points. So growth is growth, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But the mean change in occupational performance, facilitators and barriers for the intervention group was 26.4 points. So there was a significantly greater positive change in the scope scores for the intervention group, which was determined through statistical analysis to be statistically significant, which gains confidence that we're on the right track of that this is both in practice and in research a plausible intervention tool to move forward with.
And those results were coming from your pre and post test data. So
correct.
That 26.4 and that 3.5. Can you break that down for us a little bit more for those of us who haven't been studying our statistical analysis in in recent years?
Well, do you want me to go into the actual specifics of this?
No, just overall, kind of, yeah.
Okay. So basically what we did was we compared the two groups to make sure that they were in essence the same at the beginning. And we did, at the end, we looked at the scope scores for the control group and the intervention group, and basically averaged it out. And the average change from the pre-test, or from the post-test to the pre-test, so on and so forth, was 26.4 for the intervention group in terms of growth in their occupational performance, and for the control group, it was 3.25. So there's growth, and then the statistical analysis was done to compare to determine if that change was a statistically significant change, or if it could have just been a result of, anything. But based on the significant difference, they're saying that it is likely that the change could be correlated to the inclusion of this framework.
And I love these pictures, hey? I love how that could totally be, the first picture could be a child at school. Like doing their work. So they've got their water bottle, they have their headphones, that they're actually focused in doing their work.
Yeah, exactly.
Gardening, but with his headphones.
It's actually a little guy doing virtual school. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And then, yes, applying things, wearing sunglasses, chewing gum, and look, he's tying his shoes. Fantastic. And then the center picture is a young man who's out doing the garden. He's working in the garden, but he's using his headphones. And that's what he needs to be able to manage all of the, lots of sensory stuff that's happening outside. But he's successful because he's using his sensory strategies, and it's fantastic. So.
I could totally see that being a similar picture of a student outside on the playground, trying to navigate around the outside environment.
Absolutely.
How noisy and busy it could be for some of us.
Absolutely. We all use sensory strategies. It's just the fact that not the individuals with autism sometimes don't instinctively know to use sensory strategies. They use these scattered actions instead. It's not bad. We're driving down the road and, it gets bright. We put the visor down. They may squint or cover their eyes. Well, we know it's not safe to squint or cover our eyes. So we use a strategy. We just need to teach them that there are plenty of different things that they can do too, to be able to continue to, play and learn and grow and participate in, their daily occupations.
So one of my questions, I guess, would be for the teachers in the group that will be watching replay. They may have some great access to some great OTs, but sometimes I've heard that those OTs have big caseloads. They don't always get a chance to go and visit the classroom as much, or teachers don't get access to the same level of OT as they would really like. What would you say for teachers and all our educators? What can they do to help this process in lieu of having an occupational therapy directly on tap to assist them?
Well, first of all, they're welcome to reach out to me. I'm happy to help if I could ever answer any questions. So that's the first and foremost. But beyond that, really take a step back, check out the environment. Is the air conditioner humming? Is, a light flickering? Those are things that might not, bother you or might not impact you, but they may impact somebody else. So really looking at the environment and taking a step back and, how noisy is it? When was the last time these kids were able to get up and move around the room? How were they able to, are we distracted because we're sitting next to, the window and they're mowing the lawn outside? Again, some kiddos can block those things out and it doesn't impact their ability to focus and learn and play and whatnot. But for some kids, it does. And so just taking a step back and really checking out the environment,
Okay.
I think is the first step. And then the second step is just look at the kids. They're telling you. And if you have some basis of the sensory systems, which obviously they do from your sensory motor classroom, we're looking at, if we're wiggling, if we're moving, we're looking to move. So how can we build that in? And again, it doesn't need to be going on a fancy therapy swing sometimes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's as simple as letting that child be the one to hand out the papers. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's as simple as, being able to, instead of using the restroom that's, next door, using the restroom that's, 4 doors down, that type of thing, just giving them a little bit more movement breaks in their day. And for some kids, maybe it's sitting on a therapy ball, and those are the types of things where, you can play around with it, of course. And if you have a therapist that you can consult with, that, even better. But if you start to look at, we all have a ton of strategies we use for all of our sensory systems, and kind of which ones could work in your classroom, which ones could be doable and feasible, and then trying to go from there. Mm-hmm. I'm happy to always answer any questions if anybody ever has a specific kiddo that they're thinking of and are just really stuck with, again, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help.
And I think if anybody's watching live and they have a question, please shout, or if when you're watching here on replay, that might be a perfect place to put some questions that maybe you have for Janis. Obviously, they could also direct message you by the sounds of it, that you'd be happy to receive.
Oh, absolutely, sure.
As well. Sure. But it would be interesting to know how teachers and others in the classroom can envisage using something like the framework, and how they can feel empowered to be able to do that, as you're saying, that observation for their students, which of course I know as an OT going into classrooms or in preschools, the teacher will often be able to tell me exactly what the student's doing. So that's perfect information for me because I'm not there all the time. And actually it's really helpful for me to know what the student's doing and when they're doing it. And so having that data is really critical.
And with fairness, teachers spend a lot more time with their students than we do as therapists. Mm-hmm. We're lucky, we get snapshots, a half hour here, a half hour here, or something like that. These teachers are with these kids for 5 hours a day. So it may be that they're seeing things that we're not. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. We can help support. Therapy, this framework, obviously it's primarily been utilized with individuals on the spectrum, but it's really for anybody. We all use sensory strategies, and being able to recognize what is needed and what can be added, what can be taken down, and kind of doing this dance so we all, we stay at that kind of just right place.
And I really love the concept of the photos that you showed and how accessible that could be for students, and how also it could be a really great idea in the classroom when you're really busy to then also give you ideas as well, to give you those prompts. Okay, yes, okay, we're going to try this.
We all need that. We all need that, especially in this world right now. Everything is so busy, and that being able to give visuals is helpful. It's, and it doesn't need to be out all of the time. It can be something that's in the kiddo's, desk or in the teacher's drawer that they can just pull out and kind of, put on the corner of the child's desk if they're seeing. So this isn't something that has to take over by any means. Just when the teacher or an aide or whomever's working with the student is seeing these things, if the child isn't able to initiate or articulate or get their need across through other communicative attempts, that's where having the adult there to support is fantastic. There are some students that we have had that have the visuals right on their desk.
Okay.
Because they will just ask for it. We have these, pictures programmed into their iPads if they're nonverbal, so that they can go to the page. I need to move. Okay, go to your move page. What would you like to do? Okay, you want to go on the playground swing. Well, it's raining. It's not available at this moment. We're in the classroom. What could you do instead? Oh, scroll. Oh, I could bounce on that therapy ball. I can, there's a little mini trampoline. I can take a break and go do that for 2 minutes or whatnot. So those types of things. It's been very, very successful. Really,
and I know right at the
empowering these kids to. Ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think we had a bit of a delay there. We're back online now. I was just, while you were speaking, it just reminded me right at the beginning when you were talking about how you're taking away a lot of the jargon language for the sensory systems, which we can all be prone to using. And sometimes it's really helpful to know what that means, but particularly with children, like how you're using move.
Yeah.
And I know there's some other programs that also use the same kind of simple language too.
Yeah.
So how do you break down for yourselves the kind of the sensory systems for the students to kind of really grasp and understand those?
You mean
in the program?
Well, they're experiencing it. So, they're coming into the therapy room, we're taking them to the playground, we're going to the gymnasium with them, or, we're in the homes with them, whatever the case may be, we are pairing here's the therapy swing. You're getting on the therapy swing. We are pairing it with the picture, and we are constantly bringing it to, we have the poster boards on the wall of these are the activities that make your body move. And we're taking that and we're putting it right on the wall so that from the very beginning, they are seeing that this thing is this picture and this goes here. And they're just exploring and they're playing and they're having fun. And we're just putting the verbiage to it. So it becomes second nature to them that they know a swing makes my body move. And, heavy work gives my body pressure, and they just know these things. And then once they know those things, it kind of they learn what feels good, what they like, what works for them, and we're giving them feedback during their therapy sessions of, you're doing great. I can see you're making great eye contact. You're playing so nicely. You're taking turns. You're really ready to learn and play. This is fantastic. And we're also giving them that feedback of when, they might not be, when they're feeling a little scattered, they're a little silly. You know what? Something to get ready to learn and play. You know what? I do too. Right now, I'm feeling a little jittery. I'm feeling a little wiggly. I need to move. You know what? You're wiggling too. Maybe you need to move. What should we do? So really that co-regulation piece, and we're in this together, and that relationship, like it's all coming together for the kids, and they buy in. So.
And that sounds like a really crucial piece, that piece of labeling it in the moment. So it's not sitting down and learning, a swing is move. It's that more experiential learning. So as you are doing it, absolutely. You are literally feeling it in your body. So it's much more kind of whole body experience.
Absolutely. I mean, as OTs, that's how we learn, right? That's one of the best ways, is to really experience things and have it have meaning because you've experienced it. And that experience can be positive or negative. If you experience an olfactory, the smell of a skunk, and you really don't like that, that's good to know too. That is not a strategy you're going to pull from. That might be a time when you need a different strategy to help you focus and those types of things. So it's really, empowering them to recognize that they're individuals. We're all individuals. We all do this. And it's just, they might need a little bit more support along the way, and that's okay.
And I really love that reframe, or not that it's a reframe necessarily, but could potentially be a reframe in the classroom if the child is really wiggly, and how it's not necessarily, oh, sit still, it's, oh, you're really wiggly, looks like you need to move. So that sense of labeling the
Absolutely.
the action, as it were, and then looking for the
solution. Absolutely. We all do that, right? We're shaking our legs, we're, I'm having a drink of water, like everybody everybody has fidgets, people twirl their hair, everybody does sensory-based strategies. We all do, whether it's taking a warm shower at night to kind of wind you down, everybody does, but it's just making these activities come together in a meaningful way for the kids and helping the people in their lives be able to support them.
Well, Janis, thank you so much. I as always, from the other day, I really enjoyed talking to you. And again, it's been really interesting and really wonderful to have this discussion, to think about students in our classrooms, but knowing that they also leave the classrooms and they go out into the community and they go home and they become adults, and we need to.
That's huge. They become adults, and then they don't have sometimes therapy gyms anymore. So then what? Knowing what they can do, it's important. It's important for this whole lifetime sensory lifestyle. It's great. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. And I was just going to say, in terms of the right now, obviously you're in a capstone project. Have you any future plans for the framework?
I have actually submitted the capstone project. I revised it and I have submitted that for publication. So fingers crossed that'll come through soon. And I am currently designing another follow-up research study with 3 groups this time: a control group, an intervention group, an in-person intervention group, as was done in the capstone project, but also a 3rd intervention group with the kiddos that are receiving teletherapy. As to how to support these kids when they don't have a therapy gym now. They're home. What strategies can they use at home, and really empowering their family members to work with us and these kids to be able to come up with, how to improve their ability to sensory regulate, starting at home. And then we'll work our way back. So so that's exciting. It's kind of taken, a positive spin on this, unfortunate pandemic, and clearly, of another way to reach these kids and really, in this case, really be able to touch with the families, and which has been great. So
it'd be very interesting once you kind of got through that process. I know doing a research project doesn't take 2 seconds, but when you're at the end of that, it was really nice to kind of hear the results.
Absolutely. I will let you know how it goes.
Yeah.
For sure.
But thank you so much, Janis, again for your time, and hope everybody is having a great Saturday, early Sunday morning, depending where you're watching from, and see you all again soon.